So good evening and welcome to the CCRB's May board meeting. I'd like to call this meeting to order. I know that this is a bit of a departure from the norm, so I'd like to ask two things. One, that you bear with us as we navigate the technology this evening. And two, I'd like to thank all of those in attendance for their willingness to adapt so that we can have this discussion about police-community relations. I'm Fred Davey. I'm the chair of the board. And before we get started, I'd like to first and foremost give a warm welcome to our newest member of the board, and that is Police Commissioner Designee, Mr. Willie Freeman, who is joining us tonight for his first board meeting. So I'd like to invite Mr. Freeman, if he would, to say a few words. Mr. Freeman?
Well, first and foremost, I would like to thank everyone. I consider this a very high honor. I have been tapped to serve my city in this capacity. I've been a member of NYPD for over 2 decades. I have the utmost respect for the department and wholeheartedly believe that this very Review Board plays an invaluable role in making the best police department in the entire world. That being said, I always think in terms of, I know firsthand, however, that there are those who have worked that have courtesy and professionalism. However, we do have a few people that we have to give a look and be careful. Those are the ones that tarnish the reputation of our department. And of course, those are the ones that I really would not like to see being in the department. So my objective is to address this conduct head on and more ensure that only those that are worthy wear the uniform are part of and become a part and remain a part of New York finest. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Freeman, and welcome.
Thank you.
We are really pleased that you have joined us. I'm going to pause for just a second before we introduce the other board members. I think Yahya Alvarez from our outreach department wants to give us some instructions about technology. Yahya? You're on mute, I think, Yahya. There you go.
First and foremost, thank you everyone for attending our meeting. Already some technical hiccups, but I wanted everyone to look into the chat function found on the right side of your screen. If you don't see the chat function, on the bottom of your screen, you'll see an image of a person. You can click that and you can see all of those functions. In the chat feature, you'll see a link to the closed captioning that we have available to you. And for those in the hearing impaired community, we have 2 ASL interpreters. They are Jana Owen and Felice Shays. So you can pin their video via the web link that we'll send, that you can hover over their screen and use a little pin on there to make sure that whenever anyone is presenting or speaking, you can see them on your screen. We also have some assets available to you about our agenda, our policy presentation, some information on data on Staten Island, and all of that. Everyone in attendance will be muted. If you have specific questions in regards to the presentation, you can use the Q&A function found on the right hand of your screen. During our public session, you are able to have a 2-minute statement about policing, the CCRB, how to better relations, all of that. And you can use your raise the hand feature, which is found on the bottom right of your screen. If you're calling in, that function is *9, and I'll go over those instructions when we get to that part of the meeting. So thank you so much for joining us, and back to you, Chair.
Thank you, Yahya. So I would also like at the top of this meeting to acknowledge some changes to the structure of our board that stem from November's election. As many of you recall, the voters supported a few charter amendments related to the CCRB, and those amendments have recently taken effect. First, the charter now authorizes the public advocate to designate a member of the board. And I'm pleased to let all of you know that public advocate Jamani Williams has selected Esmeralda Simmons, executive director of the Center for Law and Social Justice at Medgar Evers College, to be our first ever public advocate designee. Per the charter, she will assume this role officially July 6th, and we are very much looking forward to having her join us for the July board meeting. Rumor has it that she might be watching us live stream tonight, and if she is, I want to welcome her and say that we look forward to hearing from her in July. Secondly, and this is also a major first for CCRB, I am honored to be the first CCRB chair jointly appointed by the mayor and the council speaker. Those of you who are familiar with the things we do here at CCRB, you will know that my role as chair, in this role as chair, I've been here for a couple of years. Up until now, however, the mayor had the sole discretion over the chair. The charter now requires the mayor and the speaker to choose a chair together. And I consider it a high honor, and I'm very appreciative to both of them for having the confidence to appoint me jointly to this position. And I want to publicly now thank Mayor de Blasio and Speaker Corey Johnson for this appointment. And I'm also grateful to have an opportunity to serve along with my colleagues, some of whom I've been on this board with since I started. And I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves to you right now. I'm going to start with Mr. Puma.
It's wonderful to see familiar faces and new faces on the board in this slightly different format. My name is Joseph Puma. I am the Manhattan City Council designee on the CCRB.
Thank you, Mr. Puma. Ms. Pinsky.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. I'm Angela Pinsky. I am a mayoral appointee on the board, and I've been here for less than 1 year. Thanks.
Ms. Irish.
My name is Corrine Irish. I'm also a mayoral appointee.
Thank you. Ms. Bond.
Bond. I am a mayoral designee to the CCRB. Congratulations, Chair Davey. Really thrilled to hear about your reappointment.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Mr. Dwyer.
My name is Frank Dwyer. It's good to see everybody well. I am a police commissioner designee.
Thank you. Mr. Rivadeneira.
Hi, good evening. Michael Rivadeneira, the Bronx City Council's designee to the board. And I want to say welcome to Mr. Freeman and thank you to the outreach team and the IT team to giving us this opportunity to do a virtual board meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Joseph.
Hello, good evening, everyone. My name is Nathan Joseph. I am the City Council designee from Staten Island. And it's really good to see all you guys again. It's been a long time.
Thanks. And welcome again, Mr. Freeman. And Mr. Joseph, we're glad you're back. Did I miss anyone? Did I miss any board members? All right. So, as has been said, this is the CCRB's first virtual board meeting, which we are holding in this manner to safeguard the health and wellness of New Yorkers as the city continues to combat COVID-19. As we all know, this, in quite literal terms, is a matter of life and death for our city, our nation, and our world. Having both experienced the illness of COVID-19 myself and having lost someone close to me due to complications from COVID-19, I know intimately how serious this is. Our Executive Director, John Darsh, will discuss the CCRB's operations in a little more depth shortly, but as chair, I want to make this clear. Despite the fact that our office at 100 Church Street is closed, the CCRB is still hard at work. Our staff continues to receive complaints remotely, and we remain committed to investigating all allegations thoroughly and impartially. That said, I know some of you may be concerned about the footage of two recent incidents, one that took place on the Lower East Side and another that took place in East New York. Please know that the CCRB has received complaints related to both occurrences and is investigating. Between the law enforcement of social distancing and the increased police presence on the trains as they are cleaned nightly, we know that COVID-19 has introduced a new dynamic between NYPD and civilians. While we deeply appreciate the work of members of service as first responders and understand the risk they take on our behalf, this has not changed the fact that the CCRB will investigate allegations of force, abuse of authority, discourtesy, and offensive language upon the receipt of a complaint. Our obligation to the people of the City of New York, as set forth in the city's charter, demands no less of us. Before I turn things over to Mr. Darsh, I want to also express my gratitude to the CCRB staff for all they're doing to continue serving the City of New York during this trying time, from receiving and investigating complaints to arranging this meeting and everything in between. They have been very, very hard at work. And I know that personally because I've called on them many times since the start of this pandemic. And I want to thank all the members of the board again for all the hard work that you do, both for this board and serving the city, but the other many ways you serve the city as well. And then I want to thank the members of the public who are joining us this evening. We all have a great deal on our minds right now, so it means a lot to us that you're here for this discussion about policing. And then finally, I want to thank all our city essential workers. While many of us have been staying at home, there are folks who have been working day in and day out in the face of COVID-19. And I'll take it upon myself in this moment to express gratitude on behalf of the board and on behalf of our fellow New Yorkers. And probably in about 15 minutes, you're going to hear, at least outside my windows, a lot of clapping and banging of pots and pans to acknowledge those essential workers, healthcare workers, and others. So we might take a second or so at 7 o'clock and do the same. I'll now turn it over to our Executive Director, Jonathan Darsh, who has a few words. John.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'd like to thank everyone for joining us today. This is a challenging time for our city, but it's still very important, the work we do to ensure civilian oversight of the NYPD. Currently, complaints are down not only in Staten Island, but all across the city, but misconduct is still a concern. Last year at this time, we had received 1,697 complaints in our jurisdiction. This year, we've only received 1,371. That is a decrease of 20%. In May 2019, we received 507 complaints, and that was the highest monthly number we got in 2019. So I think this month is going to be a real barometer for how the year is going to go. As the chair said, our office is closed, but we are still accepting complaints. The best way to file a complaint is on our website at nyc.gov/CCRB complaint. It's nyc.gov/CCRB-COMPLAINT, or on the phone at 1-800-341-2272. Our investigators are working remotely and are conducting civilian interviews over the telephone. Investigators continue to subpoena businesses and government entities. One of the changes that we've had to undertake on a temporary basis is we have suspended interviews of members of the NYPD because traditionally they happen in person. And when we first went to work from home, NYPD had a manpower crisis, person power crisis, and so we were unable to conduct interviews. And right now we are trying to work out a solution to resume interviews before we get back to the office. And then once we get back into the office, that will allow us to function with appropriate social distancing. There is going to be a sizable backlog of work for this agency to overcome, but I speak on behalf of the staff when I tell you all that we are dedicated and committed to addressing that backlog as fast as possible without compromising the quality of our work. The CCRB continues to work with the NYPD to obtain documentary and video evidence, and BWC footage continues to be received, but we have not been able to implement the secure room that would have allowed us to fully implement the new body-worn camera memorandum of understanding, or MOU, that we think will allow us to dramatically increase the speed at which we obtain body-worn camera footage. So there are a lot of challenges facing the agency right now, but there are a lot of challenges facing the city, and I'm confident that we are going to meet that challenge. If anyone has a question or concern or wishes to have us address something during public comment, you should either raise your hand using the hand icon on your screen and wait to be called on, or type your question into the Q&A section of the screen. And I want to thank the outreach staff, the operations staff, our IT staff for making this meeting possible. A lot of work went into it, and I really want to thank everyone on the staff who's been on a daily basis trying to adapt and overcome the challenges that we've faced. And thank you to the board for letting me speak to you.
Mr. Darch, do any of the board members have any questions for John? All right, then hearing none, before we go to our next presentation by Deputy Commissioner Harold Miller, I want to just do a housekeeping thing and approve the minutes of the last meeting. So is there a motion to approve the minutes of the last meeting?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any corrections or additions to those minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions? The minutes are approved. Thank you. Now it's my pleasure to introduce to you someone I've known for some years now. I've witnessed firsthand his very hard work on behalf of the City of New York. He is Deputy Commissioner Harold Miller. I'd like to thank you for joining us tonight, Harold. And I know you have some important resources to share for us. So, Deputy Commissioner Harold Miller. Harold.
Thank you, Fred. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to the board today and to all the members and and to my colleagues who are working on here, just thanks for giving me a moment to just kind of catch folks up on what's the latest the administration is doing in terms of COVID-19. And there's so much to unpack here. So I sent the team earlier this afternoon a link that is kind of a catch-all to what's happening. And before I dive into it, just happy that you're in better health, Mr. Chairman, and glad to see your face and know that you're doing well. First and foremost,
Thank you.
As you expressed just now, we all are affected by COVID-19, and we all know people who have been through it. Some of us have known people who have passed away due to it. And so, with this virus, a lot of the functions of the city have been altered. But we are still functioning as a city. We're still doing a lot of the work that needs to be done to make sure that services are being delivered to those that most need it. Especially when it comes to something like food, shelter, and things like that. We're feeding over 1 million New Yorkers a day, millions of meals going out a week. We are utilizing hotels to house those who need shelter in extreme circumstance. We are doing a lot of things that we need to do to make sure that New Yorkers are safe and stay healthy. One of the things that was announced recently was the expansion of testing sites. We want to increase our capacity to do more testing because the more we test, the better sense we have of who has the virus. And as we begin to do contact tracing and isolation, it will lead us to the road of us being able to reopen as a city. And connected to that, many of you have heard that we are, putting together a various task force that is looking at how we reopen and use this opportunity of reopening our city to address a lot of the inequalities that we're faced with. Not only that's been going on currently, but been going on for generations beforehand, and use this as an opportunity to really address a lot of it head on. So that's a charge by the mayor to a lot of these committees that are being formed to look at how we can reopen in a responsible way and being able to address things that structurally were imbalanced beforehand that were highlighted during this pandemic that we can address as an administration over the next 20 some odd months that we have left. So if you have, I'm not sure if this is appropriate for a question and answer, but I'll give you my email if you need more questions on anything that the city is doing. I'll connect folks to the appropriate agencies. My email is hmiller@cityhall.nyc.gov. Also, what our unit and the community affairs unit has done since middle of March is send out nightly emails to our email listserv, giving you the latest updates on COVID-19 related information. So if you're interested in that, you can let me know, and I'll make sure you're added to our email list as well, so you can get a daily email from the administration about what the latest is related to COVID-19.
Thank you, Harold. Board members, do you have any questions, you can either raise your hand or indicate in the Q&A if you'd like to ask Harold a question. All right, seeing none, I think. Jerica, are there any questions from the public for Deputy Commissioner?
Chair Davey, there are no questions for the Deputy Commissioner on his presentation at this time.
All righty. Well, Harold, thank you so much. And I'm sure that we'll be in touch by email, et cetera. And thanks again for the work that you're doing and all the people who work in the Community Assistance Unit and other parts of both the mayor's office and the city. So thank you for being with us.
I think everyone here for the work that you're doing is important. That work that you do here at CCRB, and pleasure to be a part of it this evening. Thank you again.
Thank you. All right. So I'll now turn the floor, or the virtual floor, over to Yahira for a presentation on outreach of the CCRB. Yahira Alvarez, who's our Director of Outreach and Intergovernmental Affairs. Yahira.
Thank you. For some reason, I'm not able to share my screen. Soren, can you help with that? Well, as that is going, I can also just talk a little bit and distribute the slides for you in a little bit. So I know that we've talked a little bit about who we are and what we do. For those that are unfamiliar with the agency, I wanted just to give you a brief overview of the work that we do here. As most of you know, we're a city agency, independent from the police department. We're responsible for mediating, investigating, and administratively prosecuting allegations of police misconduct. We're the nation's largest independent oversight entity of the nation's largest police force. I know that you've met some of our board members as a result of the charter changes that went into effect in November. Our board has expanded to include 15 members in total. So 5 are appointed by the mayor, 5 are appointed by the city council, 3 are designated by the police commissioner, 1, which Chair Davey mentioned, is appointed by the public advocate, although her role as board member will not take effect until July. And finally, the chair, which you've met, is appointed jointly by the mayor and the city council.
Yahira, that might be an appropriate point to just do a 7 o'clock applause for all of our workers. I can hear the noise outside of my window, and I hope you all can as well. So a mighty round of applause for all of those who put their lives on the line every single day, so that the 8.4 million people in New York and the probably 25 million people in metropolitan New York area can live the kind of lives that we live. So a deep, deep, deep expression of gratitude for them. Thank you. Please proceed, Yahira. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Especially loud over here as well. Yeah, so as we were talking about, although we investigate police misconduct, we don't investigate all allegations of police misconduct. So there are 4 major categories that fall under our jurisdiction. The way of remembering that is the acronym FADO, F-A-D-O. The F stands for force. If force is used in an interaction, that falls under our jurisdiction, and we will investigate it to determine if that force is excessive or unnecessary given the totality of those circumstances. The second category is abuse of authority. It's a larger category, but it can include everything from an improper stop, an improper search, a police officer entering a house without a warrant, a police officer refusing to give a business card in certain situations, which I'll go into in just a second. It also includes allegations of sexual harassment. The third category is discourtesy. So that means a police officer possibly using profanity or an inappropriate gesture in an interaction with a civilian. And the final category is offensive language. So that's language that inappropriately refers to my race, my ethnicity, my sexual orientation, my religion, my disability status. Those are all things that we take very seriously. So I mentioned this briefly. The Right to Know Act went into effect in 2018 and is still in effect. It's a law. And what that means that in most situations, a police officer has to proactively give a civilian a business card. That business card has that police officer's name, shield number, the precinct or command. And on the back of that card is additional information on how to file a comment or complaint by calling 311. In most situations, they proactively give it to you, but you are always entitled to ask for that. Another major element of the Right to Know Act is that the police officer must identify themselves in those interactions, and with some exceptions, explain the purpose of that law enforcement interaction with a civilian. They also have to inform you of your right to say no when asking for your consent to search your person, property, vehicle, or home if they don't already have the legal justification to do so. And again, if you have any questions about that, there's a lot of nuance to the law. We will send a link out with a little bit more robust explanation on it. As was previously mentioned, our office is closed, but you can still file a complaint. In the chat function, you'll see a link to file a complaint online. You can also call 311 or directly 1-800-341-CCRB or 2272, and we will get back to you as soon as possible to help you with that situation. If it falls outside of our jurisdiction, you can always refer that allegation. And last but not least, our outreach team is here to support. So far, we've conducted over 50 presentations virtually since our office has been closed. So we'll be happy to come out to, well, virtually come out to a community board meeting, even a classroom to share information about the CCRB. You can email me at yalvarez, we'll send it in the chat, at ccrb.nyc.gov, and you can follow us on Twitter. It's at ccrb_NYC.
Thank you very much. Let me ask first if board members have any questions for Yahira. All right, here none. Jerica, are there any questions from the public for Yahira?
So there are not questions from the public for Yahira, but I do want to address one question that's in the Q&A. Ms. Anuru is asking about the chat box function. So Ms. Anuru, we are sharing information via the chat box function, but if there are any questions, folks should put them in the Q&A box and we will address them there. So it is not, the chat function is not enabled for back and forth. It's used for sharing of information with the public. That's all we have, Chair Davey.
Great, thank you. And I should let people know that Jerica Richardson is our Senior Advisor and Secretary to the Board of Trustees. So next on our agenda is an update, a presentation on policy and data. And we have Nicole Napolitano, who is our Director of Policy and Advocacy, to do a presentation. Nicole.
Thank you very much, Chair Davey. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
Oh, good. Okay. Thanks. So good evening, everyone. I'm Nicole Napolitano. I'm the Director of Policy and Advocacy for the CCRB. This presentation will depict some of the data surrounding complaints that we have received and closed for incidents of alleged NYPD misconduct in Staten Island. In 2019, there were 227 or 5% of the complaints that the CCRB received in the agency's jurisdiction that stemmed from incidents in Staten Island. This rate is commensurate with estimates of Staten Island's population, which houses about 6% of New York City residents. This graph depicts the rate of CCRB complaints received in 2019 with the rate of NYPD arrests in 2019 in each of the 4 precincts in Staten Island, as well as Staten Island overall. These numbers represent the number of CCRB complaints and NYPD arrests per 10,000 residents of each location. Rates of CCRB complaints received generally mirrors the rates of arrests. Where there's more police enforcement activity, there are more complaints of police misconduct. At 9.3 complaints per 10,000 residents, the highest rate of CCRB complaints in Staten Island is for incidents occurring within the boundaries of the 100 precinct. This graph depicts the proportion of dispositions of Staten Island's fully investigated complaints closed in 2019. 38% of complaints were closed as unsubstantiated, meaning that the board was unable to determine, given the evidence available, whether misconduct occurred. I should note here that the proportion of complaints closed as unsubstantiated have been on the decline as more of the CCRB's cases contain body-worn camera footage from the incident, which helps in making determinations of fact. 33% of the complaints were closed as exonerated, meaning the conduct that occurred was within the boundaries of what is allowed under the law and the NYPD Patrol Guide. 15% were substantiated, indicating that the officer's behavior was determined by the board to be misconduct. 9% were closed as member of service, or MOS, unidentified, which means none of the officers in those complaints were able to be identified. And 6% were closed as unfounded, which means it was determined that the incident did not occur as the complainant described. Now, all of these data and a great deal more are publicly available on our website via the CCRB Data Transparency Initiative, or DTI. And so this slide lists a few important web shortcuts. And for those additional data points, you'll want to visit that middle one, nyc.gov/DTI. Please also note that there is a feedback form on the DTI page. If there are other types of data that you'd like to see made available on our page in the future, or if you have any questions about CCRB data or need any additional data points, please let us know via that feedback form. And finally, if you'd like to read our annual, semi-annual, or monthly statistical reports or any of our issue-based policy reports, please visit nyc.gov/CCRB reports. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole. First, board, any questions for Nicole? Mr. Puma?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just had a question about it seems, I just did some quick addition, and it seems like it's, when you were giving the dispositions in that pie chart and how those broke down, it seemed like only about 82 or so cases were fully investigated. I added up all of those, the number of cases in the pie chart. So out of about 227 cases from last year, about 82 were fully investigated. Do you know, and I understand if you may not have the data immediately accessible, but were there more cases where that were, I guess, what we consider truncated, or how much of that, how did that break out as far as the cases that were not fully investigated from Staten Island?
So I should just clarify that the 227 that we received in 2019 is a different number than the cases that were closed in 2019. So the cases closed in 2019 might have originated in the previous year. So the cases closed, some of those might have been not fully investigated in the same way that the 227 that we received last year, some of those may have been truncated or mediated as well. So they're just different groups of cases.
Right. Okay. I mean, I guess yeah, thank you for clarifying that. I guess my main concern would be to understand more if there are, or if we're finding a higher percentage of truncated cases from the borough. I know that there have been efforts by, during more normal times with less physical distancing. For example, our community partners initiative with Councilmember Rose, in which she opens up her office on a regular schedule for members of the public to interact with the CCRB, given the fact that Staten Island tends to be more a little bit farther, and it's harder for residents perhaps to come into the city or at times. Thank you.
Yes, the briefing book that was sent around via the chat function earlier does have the overall case closure rate. It doesn't compare Staten Island to the rest of the city, but just taking a quick peek, it does seem that the truncation rates are somewhere around half of the cases that are received, which is very similar to the truncation rates that are in the rest of the city.
Okay, for clarifying that.
Thank you, Nicole, and thank you, Mr. Puma. Any other questions from board members? All right, so Jerica, are there any questions from the public?
So we received a question from Miss Gloria Alfinas. Soren, would you please unmute her mic? Miss Alfinas' question is related to vulnerable youth. Miss Alfinas?
So there are two mics. Might need to be unmuted. The one that she has, the one that we unmuted, and then she may need to unmute on her computer as well. Ms. Alpheus, are you there? All right. If we get
Okay.
her, oh, she's there. Go ahead. Is she there? All right, maybe not. So what we do, if we get her, we will come back to her question.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Sure. And so now we're going to move, just to make sure there are no other questions. All right, now we'll move to comments from community groups. And Yahira, do you have any speakers from community groups who'd like to speak?
Yeah. So first we have Shahana Musum. She's a community outreach liaison from Muslim Sisters of Staten Island Incorporated. Soren, can you unmute her when you get a moment?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes. Thank you.
Okay.
Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. And I mean, this is a really difficult time to talk about NYPD because they're our essential worker. We have so much, respect and love for them. But still, we are living in a community. We need to make sure our community receive what is they deserve. I live in Staten Island last 17 years, almost 18 years. And it's been very difficult, Staten Island. I was in a different borough before. Since I've been here, I've been seeing that the Staten Island, especially the NYPD, the police department, when we walk into any police precinct, you will see the misrepresentation. Like you will see a lack of immigrant community and different other community. Only certain race is more, really major, in a different precinct than the others. And anytime we bring out about bringing the diversity, they think only the diversity is this is a Staten Island culture or something, or maybe they don't understand yet what is the diversity means. They bring maybe 1 and 2 African American or Black people, and they think that's the diversity. This is a very wrong conception in a Staten Island precincts. They do have it in the police department. And also I've been witnessing and my community been going through that is they are I'm sorry to say that they don't know, they are so biased and they don't have enough knowledge to be with the non-white community, what I should say. And also my background, I'm a Muslim and I am a South Asian. So this is my community goes through like every other day, that we've been racially, treating bias, towards to our community. And even though some of them you can see they don't directly tell you how biased they are, how much they're discriminating you. They have you can see it, you can feel it, you are there. And that's why this, your department is open that, really listen to us and solve this problem. So, and also what I want to say that my personal experience, like I've been through NYPD bias attack so many times. It's still like I have my local precinct. I'm not saying the which number the precinct, and I've been to the local precinct council last 3 years. But they see me every time they see me, still they ask me what is my name. But I've been very, me and my family and my community, other community member, we are very active in our community, but still they don't know our name. It's like every time we go there, every meeting, every month's meeting, they ask us what is our name. So you can see how much they are ignorant, and I mean they don't care. That's another thing. They care only certain people, and it's been there quite long time. It needs to be changed, and it's we have a 4% in Staten Island. And I think 120 is more. You can see little diversity. I'm saying, and when they bring the diversity, they think it's only the African American people, including that's the diversity. No, it is not. Staten Island has a large number of immigrants, and this immigrant is, and that Staten Island has the African immigrant, a large number African continent immigrant, and African is not your own Africa country. So that's the one we also need to bring. I'm sorry, I'm taking little time. And also the last one I want to make that I took a training with the Citizenship Police Academy, and that training is very is form, and the setup their program is very biased, and they're very racist, and that's the one I keep. I talked to Commissioner O'Neill and brought this issue, me and my community, but it's still like that. It hasn't been changed. So we need to make sure that's changed. That needs to be changed, and then people mind and education people will be educated proper way, not the wrong way.
Thank you so much.
The first concern. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Let me just say a couple of things, and then I'll see if the board of staff have comments. First off, thank you for being willing to come out and share or from where you are, share your comments. And I think the department is working to diversify the force more and more, and I think it's probably, at least at the patrol level and perhaps in the higher echelons of the department, is a little more diverse than it's probably been in a long, long time. But that doesn't mean that all of that that work has made it to all of the precincts like any of us would really want. And particularly when you move beyond just a black-white paradigm, as you're suggesting, there are many other issues of diversity that need to be addressed by the department. There's also the issue of bias, and I know the department has worked to do implicit bias training, as we've all had to do as members of the board of the CCRB. But the department reflects the larger society, and we still have a long way to go in terms of rooting out bias. I want to commend you for going to the precinct council meetings, taking a part in the citizenship training that the NYPD offers. And I'd also say, if indeed you feel like you are the victim of a bias act on the part of a member of the force, then please do report it to the CCRB and allow us to investigate it. Let me stop, see if any of my colleagues have comments, or see if any of the staff have comments. All right.
Director Davey, it's Frank Dwyer.
Sure.
I'll just comment. I mean, aside from, I know the chair meets with the police commissioner regularly and discusses this type of things, but I certainly know that the current chief of training is a person of great commitment to getting things right, and she's an exceptional human being. So though much training is on hold at the moment, I will certainly make sure she knows your experience in the Citizens Police Academy. And I'll even ask Yahira to make sure we have your contact information. As I say, that training at the moment is focused on many things, so I wouldn't be surprised if the Citizens Police Academy is suspended at the moment. But she certainly would care deeply if that was your experience, if that is your experience.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dwyer. Any other comments from the members of the board or staff? All right, thank you. And I know that we have members of the public who we asked to comment earlier and they didn't get through, and I got word that we have those comments now, but what we'll do, we'll continue with the community groups and then we'll come back to hear the questions from other folks. So Yahira, anyone else from a community group?
Yes, and we will definitely connect with you, Ms. Muslim. So next up we have Taj Ellis. He's Assistant Project Director from Mariners Harbor Community Center, United Activities Unlimited. So he will be on video and audio for us.
How you doing? Can you see me?
We can.
Hi. How are you? So, you know, I was asked by Mr. Rose to speak basically on my experience working in the Mariners Harbor community in Staten Island in regards to police activity, but as well as the CCRB. I think personally, CCRB does, you know, come out to local events and local meetings and whatnot. I think there needs to be a greater presence of the CCRB in local communities. The NYPD has such a powerful presence, especially when you're working in a lower income, you know, NYCHA housing development. You tend to see the NYPD a lot, and I think it needs to be equitable the amount of times we see the CCRB in order to foster some sort of trust with these people, because in essence, we want these lower income, these lower socioeconomic people to understand there's a checks and balances when they're interacting with the police. And a lot of times they don't get that, and they just assume that, you know, whipping out a cell phone and recording it and placing it on social media is enough, when in reality there is more to it. There's a whole process of ways to report and, you know, hold members of the NYPD accountable, and you know, the public just doesn't know that, and they're not abreast to the information that is out there for them in terms of the situation. And looking at the data that was shown that I got today in the email, you know, because I myself have made complaints to the CCRB regarding police interaction, because if I see something that I believe to be inappropriate or misconduct on behalf of the NYPD, I was told that it was my responsibility as a citizen of New York to make that complaint. But, you know, it seems kind of redundant when 33% of the claims go unfounded or unsubstantiated. Another 33% of the claims, the officers are exonerated. You know, so if only 35% of claims in 2019 in Staten Island have been considered substantiated, I think it's a little, I don't want to say problematic, because that might be a harsh way to put it, but I think it is, you know, a quandary. It's effective citywide, or is this a thing that, you know, maybe Brooklyn or Manhattan or the inner boroughs, you know, have a greater effect on, rather than the outer boroughs like Staten Island? And like how Miss Shahana has said previously before me, these officers don't look like the people that they're policing in the neighborhoods that they're policing. And we expect the CCRB to, you know, have a handle on that. But again, if over 66% of claims or 68% of claims are going exonerated and unsubstantiated, it kind of makes it seem like the voice of the people are unheard or trivialized. And that's the way I see it. And then in terms of the NCOs in the neighborhoods, I don't see the effectiveness of the NCOs if they're going to be in the same kind of militia style affairs as the regular officers. You know, if the NCOs get lost in the gang mentality when officers attack, that's what happened in my situation when I made my complaint. I witnessed NCOs who knew the people that were being attacked by the officers who do not know. It kind of doesn't make sense. It's almost like an illusion. You know, we give you the idea that there's somebody in your neighborhood who's there to, you know, get a sense of who the neighborhood is, where they're from, who they are. And then the idea is that they know me so that when something goes wrong, God forbid, they recognize my face. But then when something went wrong, they did the same thing that every other officer who isn't in the neighborhood daily, who doesn't know the kids daily, who doesn't know the families daily, did the same exact thing. So I know in my community, there's still a little bit of distrust with the NCOs, even though they see them every day. So they're friendly because they're there every day. It's just a matter of, you know, do they really trust the officers who hold the neighborhood in regards, and, you know, when it comes to the affairs of NYPD. So that was my little addition.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So again, I'll try to respond, and then I'll open it up to my colleagues. With the diversity question, all I can say is that we continue to, you know, everybody has to continue to work at it. I know that there is commitment from the mayor, speaker, as well as the commissioner and others to try to make sure that we have a diverse and appropriately culturally sensitive force. And it's clear that there still needs to be a lot of work done on that. And it seems like diversity in the precincts, and maybe more so in Staten Island, is still something we need to work out and try to achieve. On the question of the substantiation of complaints, I would just say that don't take the unsubstantiated complaints as not being, it doesn't, as our saying that activity as reported did not happen. It just means that by a preponderance of the evidence, we could not prove that it happened. And I think the more we can get witnesses to respond, to come out, to talk to us, to engage with the agency, the more unsubstantiated complaints we might be able to close on the merits. And body-worn camera footage is helping a lot with that. If we get back to normal, and I'm going to anticipate we will get back to some form of normal, I'm hoping that on Staten Island we'll see the number of cases closed on the merits actually increase. There was one issue that you raised that I wanted to address, but I think it just slipped my mind. I should have written it down. But I want to thank you for coming out. In terms of the presence of the outreach team in the neighborhood, Yahira and her team have stretched their bandwidth quite wide. They could use more support, more help, which means the agency could use more money. So we will be working with Councilmember Rose and others in this time of real scarcity to see if we can't get more targeted resources for the community outreach of the agency. I would agree, the more the agencies in the neighborhood and with neighborhood groups, and I think they're doing a fantastic job with the resources they have, the bandwidth they have, but the more we can expand that bandwidth, I think the better it is for everyone to know that this agency is working on their behalf. So thank you for your comments. Let me see if my fellow board members have any comments.
Mr. Chair, do you mind if I address the issue of the difference between exonerated and unsubstantiated?
Mr. Darsh, go ahead.
So an unsubstantiated complaint means we could not determine whether the conduct alleged was misconduct by a preponderance of the evidence. That means we might not have been able to establish that it happened, or we might have been able to establish that it happened, but we weren't able to determine it was misconduct. In an exonerated case, we are crediting the civilian's version of events. We're saying that the events that the civilian complained about happened, but that the conduct by the NYPD, they were permitted to do by the law and the patrol. And so the CC, while I hear what the speaker was saying about our substantiation rate and why it feels like sometimes it might not make sense to file a complaint. There's no other way to know whether the conduct you are saying happened was misconduct without filing a complaint. And if it turns out that the conduct was exonerated, maybe the answer is that we need to do more as a community, but the CCRB cannot substantiate conduct that is not actually misconduct, because that we are a neutral and impartial body, and our job is to investigate the facts as they come and make determinations on the facts that we are able to figure out.
Thank you, John. Any other comments? All right, thank you, Yahira. And community.
Yeah, we have one final community group to speak. I just wanted to make a quick announcement for those participants wanting to speak during our public comment section. Just use the raise the hand feature and we'll go down the list. So after we hear from our next speaker, we'll go back to that youth question and then hear from Council Member Debbie Rose and a representative from Assembly Member Charles Fall's office. So next up, we have Elijah Scott. He's the president of the NAACP Staten Island branch, the youth chapter. And Elijah will be joining us via audio.
Sure, go ahead.
All right, hi, can you see me?
Yes, please, go ahead.
All right, hi, thank you. Good evening, and thank you for letting me speak. But yeah, I just wanted to, piggyback off of, some of the things that, Taj was saying and to a lot of the police in the community, are just not really connected with the community. And, in certain situations, when they happen, it's like the police officers have no idea who the people are, and have no way of speaking to them. They just, see someone who's not listening to what they have to say, or whether maybe they're committing a crime or something like that, or anything, whatever the case may be. But I think it would be very, beneficial to the community and to the people of the community if we had, enough people in the police department who, would just take time, or, just try to connect as much as they could to the people of the community, get to know people, play basketball or something like that, or just, go out their way instead of just doing their job, so that, maybe they could speak to some of the people, let them know that maybe whatever they're doing is not right, anything like that, so that they could prevent any future crimes from happening, so that they don't have to be arrested, or, could also bring down a lot of the crime and young people who end up in jail at a young age and stuff like that. And could just make the relationship between the police and, communities a little bit more better, so that communities can trust the police more, and, have a better understanding of the police, and the police have a better understanding of, us in the community. And so, yeah.
Yeah, well, great. Well, thank you. I mean, that's the goal, right? To increase the trust between the members of the department and who work in the neighborhoods and the neighborhoods they patrol. And it's clear, as we said before, we've got a lot of work to do in that regard. And we hope the contributions that the CCRB make as being an agency that is able to receive and investigate and adjudicate complaints is one way of helping to rebuild that trust. But there are other ways that that can get done as well, and we all have to keep advocating for it. But thank you for your comments. Let me see if my fellow board members have any comments or questions they'd like to make.
All right, thank you.
Right, thank you. So Yahira, our next speaker.
So we're going to try to go back to the question before on youth that there was some audio problems with. Soren, if you can try that again. And once again, for the we'll be entering our public comment session right after we hear from elected officials. If you require ASL interpretation, we will enable your video. Just add that request for Q&A that you would like ASL interpreters. Otherwise, it will just be audio for the rest of the participants. So Soren.
So this is Jerica, just for clarity. Soren, if you could unmute Miss Gloria Alfinez's mic. Miss Alfinez's question was related to protecting our vulnerable youth. Miss Alfinez?
We're still having problems.
Soren, were we able to unmute her mic? If not, Miss Alfinez, if you go ahead and just send me your full question, I can circle back and read it, and we can have the board address it. My apologies for the audio issues.
All right.
Thank you, Jerica.
And Chair Davey, we have several other questions, but we'll hold them till, as you said before, right after we hear from the elected officials' offices. But I'd like to read them before we go straight into public comment.
Absolutely, absolutely. So Yahira, our public officials.
Yeah, so we're going to hear from Councilmember Debbie Rose, just via audio, just to have a brief introduction and address the participants today. So Soren, can you unmute Councilmember Rose's audio?
Councilmember Rose, are you there?
Hello?
Hi, how are you? Welcome. Yes,
Hi.
we can. Yeah, welcome. It's
Good
always
evening.
good to hear you, and it's even better to see you, but we'll take hearing you at this point. So the mic is yours.
I've been struggling for the last hour to try to get into this WebEx. I guess I haven't mastered it yet, so I'll have to be satisfied with just audio, but I can see all of you, and I want to start by welcoming you to Staten Island, even though it's only virtual. I want to congratulate you on your first Staten Island virtual meeting. I'm ecstatic that this is actually happening, because oftentimes on Staten Island we don't really get the chance to voice our opinion and concerns. So I'm really glad to see that this meeting was still able to go forward. I have just, and I want to thank, I think it was member Puma who reminded everyone that I have a CCRB member that comes to my office once a month, so that people who, there was a caller on this WebEx that mentioned that she didn't feel really comfortable at the precinct. So I want to again reiterate that we have someone in my office who comes to my office, so that all claims or reports can be made without going into the precinct or having to travel into Manhattan, especially now with the coronavirus and our limited ferry service and transportation. I would hate for someone not to utilize the services because of transportation issues. I just have two concerns. One is that we're seeing that there appears to be an uptick of aggressive policing, and it's based around social distancing. I am a huge proponent of social distancing. I'm out there. I truly believe that NYPD, that we need to enforce it. I think that we need to be very, very careful about how that enforcement is done, and to make sure that it's equitable, that people are being protected, because the purpose of social distancing is to protect people. And I don't want to see the uptick in aggressive policing in an instance where we're supposed to be protecting people. So that was my first concern. My second concern is we fought really hard to get the CCRB referendum on the ballot the last time. And I was really excited by the fact that one of the issues was that you would get an increase in the head count, that there were going to be 17 additional staff members added to the CCRB. I think that it's really important that you have the adequate manpower, especially in light of the fact that, you know, we're going through this pandemic, and we're not really sure what's going to sort of manifest itself, you know, within these times. So the fact that now, because of the pandemic, New York City is facing huge budget cuts. There's an $8 billion deficit in our New York City budget. And one of the cuts that I saw that the CCRB is taking is to staff. And the 17 staff members that I feel personally we fought really hard to get. I didn't think that that was adequate, because I felt that we needed to be adding people to your outreach, part of the agency, in addition to the investigative. So I feel like this is sort of a double loss. Could you just tell me what your feelings are about the budget cuts? If there is some internal effort to maybe find some other cut that the agency could take instead of to the staffing. And then just, you know, you could make a general statement about social distancing and the seeming uptick in overly aggressive policing. Thank you.
Thank you. So let me just make a quick comment, turn it to John to talk about the staffing and the budget. In terms of impact, I mean, we, like you, were hoping to be able to expand the staff, and the budget obviously has taken a couple of hits, one before the end of this fiscal year, and one, as I understand it, at least one in the budget that's to come. But let me turn it over to John to talk in more details about how they're trying to manage that. And then I'll see if any of the board members want to comment on the issue of social distancing and policing. So, John?
The budget situation is extremely dire for the city. We were asked to find a way to cut approximately 5% of our budget. At the time, we knew the city was going to impose a hiring freeze, and our non-personnel budget items are very limited. Most of our non-personnel budget is rent, which is fixed. And if we're going to do our job, I couldn't figure out a way for us to actually function as an agency and cut our non-personnel services as a way of getting around the personnel cuts. The other reason I was able to recommend this to the board was because of the charter change. Our headcount starting in fiscal year 2022 will go back up to whatever it would have been. I think it is 0.65% of the NYPD's uniformed headcount. And so normally in a situation like this, an agency has to claw back its headcount. The charter is going to put us in a much better situation when we are finally going to be able to hire people. This is an extremely dire situation. I am hoping that the federal and state governments will give relief to the city that will allow us to go back to where we were, but I don't think we could do anything else based on the situation that the whole city is facing.
Thank you, John. Any other comments for the council member, particularly on social distancing and policing? Ms. Bond. Erica?
Councilmember Rose, I just want to thank you for your comments, both about our budget and about concerns around aggressive policing. I think many of us on the board share concerns about aggressive enforcement of social distancing and the potential for that to undermine sort of the public health goals that the city has in terms of reducing the spread of the coronavirus. So I would just encourage the public and everyone on this call to really reach out to the CCRB and file a complaint if they see issues related to social distancing, if they have concerns about the way that social distancing is being enforced. I think that we can serve as a resource in this time. I think the NYPD is certainly facing a lot of hurdles and a lot of challenges right now. We really appreciate all that the officers are doing, but certainly if there are instances where there's aggressive enforcement of social distancing, those are the kinds of complaints that our agency should be taking.
Thank you. Thank you, Erica. Any other comments? All right. Thank you.
Fred.
Mr. Siegel, let me just tell the public, John, that we've been joined by John Siegel, who is a mayoral designee to the board. John.
And I apologize for being late, and I was on business thing that ran over, and I can't blame the traffic like would usually be the situation. I guess I have two reactions to this discussion that I've been thinking about a lot as I read the papers and consider this unprecedented situation. And I think, you know, the observation has been made by many that this crisis, as crowds and regular life have receded, have revealed pre-existing conditions that people in the city and people in society deal with. And certainly both the perception and occasional reality of some, not the majority, but some on the police force of aggressive policing that may at times be correlated with race is a concern. I guess my reaction to this too, that I think should be recognized, and I don't know who said what earlier, is that another pre-existing condition that we've very much seen here is the way that we rely on the police department to do the jobs that nobody else is charged with or maybe even willing to do. And that policing social distancing, which is a completely novel concept in our city and our society, closing the subway system at 1 a.m. and relying on the police to do these things. Like, these are things where, again, we are asking the police to do things that nobody else does and nobody's trained to do and nobody's organized to do. And so there's that double whammy of the perception and reality of inequality in society, and that we all turn to the police to do the job. And I just wanted to recognize both of those as things that we're dealing with as a board, I know as a board member, we will evaluate facts if and when they come to us and not jump to conclusions. But those are the unprecedented situations that we're dealing with now.
Thank you, John. Any other comments from board members?
Chair, I can just say a couple of words. I want to thank the council member for bringing this up, and I agree with both Erica and John Siegel. It's unprecedented times, and we definitely want to keep an eye on this and make sure that we are adhering to social distancing, and it's done in a manner where officers are not being aggressive with our communities. But one thing that I think, to the point that the gentleman's brought up earlier, especially to Taj's point, I think what we're asking the community to do is also be a trusted messenger for us. And when you do see something, inform your friends, inform a family member of there is this avenue to call and make a complaint with CCRB. We can't be in every community. I am very concerned of how the summer will look like, especially for our youth. I know that's been brought up earlier, and in regards to our youth and social distancing and interactions with the police, I am very concerned. But I hope that the youth that are on this particular call today, and to Taj, please be a trusted messenger and encourage people to file complaints if there is an incident that occurs.
Thank you, Mr. Rivadeneira. Any other comments from board members? All right, thank you, Councilmember Rose. We always appreciate your being with us, and we appreciate the work that you do, not only in the community of Staten Island, but for the city as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you. Am I still on audio?
You are, yes.
I am. I just want to say one thing, that social distancing is a new concept that no one's had to do, but it is a clearly defined concept that people need to maintain about 6 feet apart. And so that's something that can be equitably managed. That's something that could be equitably monitored. So if you're looking at social distancing, then you're looking at it through the same lens, regardless of what community you're in. So I appreciate the board members' remarks about, it being new and, we're in uncharted waters, and that we clearly are. But if you are able to enforce it in one community, then there should be no problem with enforcement in a different community. And that was my point. So I thank you again for giving me the opportunity to speak to this board. You happen to be one of my favorite city agencies, and I'm more than willing to be supportive and to go to bat. I probably was one of several council members who really did take personally the cuts that your agency had to take, since you have such a small budget. We just felt that some agencies should have been exempted, just as I feel that young people should have been exempted from the cuts, and for the mayor, for the administration to cut all activity, all the budgets around youth programming is really setting us up for a very difficult summer. And I'm afraid that there will be an uptick of incidents where we see police involvement. So again, I thank you for being there and giving us the opportunity to let you know what things are going on through our lens. So thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for all your support. We really appreciate it. So we will go to our next speaker, Jericho. You will let us know who that is, or Yahira.
Just one more office. Thank you so much, Councilmember Rose. You have been really great about coming out to our Staten Island events and being such a strong advocate. So next we'll be hearing briefly from Brian Early. He's the Legislative Director for Assemblyman Charles Ball. So Soren, can you unmute him for a second?
Everybody hear me?
Yes, we hear you. Welcome.
I too, well, let me introduce myself. My name is Brian Early. I'm the Legislative Director for Assemblyman Charles Fall. I also had problems with the audio, not the audio, but the video aspect. This is my first opportunity to actually meet with this organization, this agency. I guess more so with the Assemblyman being the first elected African American, Muslim American on the North Shore for the state legislature. He does identify with the situations, more so the recent situations. A couple of the state representatives have actually written a letter to the mayor with regards to the incidents in Lower Manhattan, and so he is identified, and he is on top of that. He does have, does want to extend out more of a, opportunity to have you come into Staten Island to meet in his office. We have an open door policy on many various issues, but this is a critically important one, especially as we travel through not only the, the pandemic, but more so the restructuring afterwards. So we just wanted to extend out that invitation. Our office is always open to this agency.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate that and look forward to working with you in any ways that we can. Any of the staff want to respond, or members of the board? All right. Well, thank you, and thanks for coming and pass along our thanks to Mr. Fall as well. Next speaker, Yahira or Jericho?
We'll have Jerica go through some of the questions from the Q&A and then go to our public session.
Sure. Okay, Jerica?
So thank you to everyone who sent questions to us via the Q&A, and thank you so much for your patience. I would like to start with Ms. Anna Santiago. Ms. Santiago had several questions, which I'll read, and then she is a representative from the ECRB and would like to comment. And since we're heading into the comment section of our agenda, we will take both her questions and her comment. Ms. Santiago, when you do start your comment, we just need to encourage you to limit it to 2 minutes. So Ms. Santiago's question was, I want to know more about the secure room and why did CCRB agree to its terms? Executive Director Darsh, can you talk a little bit more about the secure room here at the CCRB?
Yes, so currently there's a large backlog of it takes a long time for us to receive body-worn camera footage requests or receive responses to our body-worn camera footage requests. And sometimes we have false negatives in those body-worn camera footage requests. The secure room is not perfect, but it balances the needs of the CCRB to have early and unredacted access to body-worn camera footage and also be part of the search process to make sure that videos aren't being missed. If we get a false negative once the secure room is in operation, then that is as much on the CCRB as it is on the NYP. And by having our people in the room helping refine search terms and viewing video much earlier in the process, that will enable us to speed investigations and reduce the amount of video that we need to download.
Thank you, Executive Director Darsh. Chair Davy, did you have a comment?
I did not. Please go ahead.
Okay. And so Ms. Santiago also has a question about the recent videos of police abuse. I'm sure we have seen a lot of them in the media and in the press. She's asking if an investigation has begun. Executive Director Darsh, is there any guidance that you can provide?
So we have open investigations into those matters. Under Civil Rights Law 50A, I can't discuss more than that.
Thank you. And Soren, is Ms. Santiago's mic unmuted?
Hello.
Hi.
Ms. Santiago?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes. Go ahead with your comment.
Okay, great. I'm with the Elected Civilian Review Board, and we're a campaign that is not in disagreement with the CCRB, but there are some problems that we see with the CCRB itself. And one of the major problems that we do see is that once an investigation has been completed and recommendations of discipline are given, oftentimes those recommendations are not followed through by the commissioner. Now, I'd like to know with the recent reforms, if the commissioner is now reporting back to the CCRB whenever he denies following any of the recommendations of the Board of Discipline. And also, do you agree that the board itself having the power to discipline officers would be a better idea as opposed to having only the commissioner be able to enforce discipline?
Let me just make a brief comment and I'll turn it over to John and any of the board members who want to comment. I'm not going to touch the last, but as for the first question, with the reform, we get written reports from the department on all, as I understand it, John or anyone else can correct me if I'm wrong, all deviations from recommended disciplines that come out of the CCRB. But John, you want to comment further on this?
So the chair is exactly right. For all of the cases in which the police commissioner has deviated from the CCRB's recommended discipline since that charter provision went into effect, which was like election day of last year, we've been receiving detailed letters from the department. And our policy unit is compiling them to, number one, make sure that we're getting enough detail in those letters, and number two, to see if there are any trends that we can use and report upon to the public.
Thank you, John. Any board members? All right, thank you, Speaker, for your comments, and we appreciate all your efforts as well to improve the relationship between the police department and the community. Jericho, are there other speakers?
Mr. Chair, can I just say one thing about the ECRB?
Sure.
So I just wanted to credit the ECRB for a lot of the attention that the provisions in the charter reform that affected the CCRB so positively got. And while I know the charter reform didn't go far enough for the members of the ECRB, I know that I personally am grateful for the work you did in bringing attention to this important issue. And I know that the staff is committed to using the charter revision changes that were voted on by the public, and we have to implement them to make sure you get the full fruit of the work that you did.
Thank you so much.
Good job. And thank you, Speaker, as well. Jerica?
Thank you. Next, we have a question from Deborah Miller. We may also want to, in addition to unmuting Ms. Miller's mic, unmute Director of Policy Nicole Napolitano as well. So Ms. Miller's question is, have you investigated that a greater number of policing in North Shore communities, that there are a greater number of policing in North Shore communities than South Shore communities in Staten Island? What are we doing about this imbalance? I'm not sure if our policy director can respond with great specificity just about North Shore and South Shore. But Nicole, if there is any guidance or any information related to data and Staten Island that you can share with this group, we'd be happy to hear it.
Sure. I mean, I can tell you that the North Shore does have.
Speak.
I'm sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
The North Shore does have both more policing and more CCRB complaints. We haven't done any analysis specifically on underlying variables related to that discrepancy, but acknowledging, yeah, according to NYPD's own numbers reporting police activity, as well as our complaint rates, that does seem to be the case.
Thank you for that, Nicole. Ms. Miller, did you have any other questions or comments before we move to the next person?
I just would like to thank you, Ms. Richardson, and thank also our chairman, Mr. Davey, and for this opportunity tonight, and to share with you that I appreciate the work that you're doing. I am a former director of a family resource center in Staten Island, the Jewish Board, and I have been working in the community for over 20 years. And it is very obvious during this time, particularly during this time, that we are in this epidemic, that we see police sirens and going on all the time in the community, because I ride through to take a look. And so it does increase definitely the number of young people or whatever age that are arrested or harassed. And there really needs to be something. It's like a setup. And I also wanted to include Port Richmond because they're not really considered South Shore or North Shore, but in terms of way the map is sorted out. But I just really need to emphasize that this is a really major issue, and as was stated earlier, we are moving towards the summer, and we know a lot more youth and young adults will be on the streets, and we really need to take a look at this. I just want to say that we do have to do something to hold our police chiefs and our sergeants of these precincts. We need to hold them accountable, because they have something to do. It's not just the community, because the community is doing their part to the most part. And you guys are doing your part with partnering with the community. But we need more support in those houses. So again, I thank you so much for this opportunity and for holding this webinar. And have a good evening. Thank you.
Thank you. You too. Thanks so much. Jerica?
Thank you. So next up, we have a question from Mr. Kelvin Howell Jr. Soren, when you get a chance, can you unmute Mr. Howell's mic? Kelvin asks, how many cases are there in the LGBTQIA+ community? Mr. Howell, are you asking specifically about the LGBTQIA plus community in New York City in general, or are you asking about Staten Island specifically? Mr. Howell?
Can you hear me?
Can you turn your volume up a little bit or speak louder?
Yes. Hear me better now?
A little.
A little.
Go ahead. Go ahead with your comment. Yeah, we can hear you now. Go ahead.
Okay, great. Thank you. So first, before I tap on that, I do want to say good evening and thank everyone for the work that you guys are doing. And I definitely want to wish all your families and loved ones well. And I want to take time to give a special thank you and applaud Timothy Harrell, who is one of your outreach specialists who's doing a wonderful job in community and has been visible in all communities across the board. So I'm truly thankful for him. So yeah, I have a specific question about the LGBTQIA community for Staten Island, but for the CRB as a whole. Being someone that is acclimated in that community, working with that population, I do know it's a lot of misconduct and things that come from the police department. And I wanted to know specifically, what are you guys doing to track that, or what data you have about that? And that's like what the question was. And then the second part of that would be, I hear from what I heard from some people this evening that, the police has such a challenging job. And I do understand that they do have a job and it is challenging times and it's new, but nevertheless, it is a job. And so they cannot be given special circumstances because it's a job, and that it's a job that no one wants to do. It is a job. It's an employment like any other job in the world, and they have to abide by the rules and their training. And then when not, there has to be severe consequences for accountability because it's lives that we're dealing with. You know what I'm saying? It's not retail. It's not if you misfold a shirt, it's okay. You know what I'm saying? So I just want to we can have that amongst people that are speaking, because then that goes into community. So we have to be very clear with that narrative that it's not that they have a higher job. It's a job.
Thank you.
You know what I'm saying?
Thank
So
you.
that needs
Yes,
to be
indeed.
addressed, because that
Thank
comes
you.
out in community, and people hear that. Oh, it's a job. So because it's a job, or it's something that not everyone wants to do. It's not. No, it's a job. It's a test given, and people can apply for it. So they shouldn't be looked upon differently because of what they're doing, and they're on the front line. Just like doctors and nurses are saving lives every day. But if they make a mistake or do something, they will be held accountable as well.
Understood. Thank you. Let's address so just a quick comment on that. And everybody understands, and we definitely will do our part as an agent and given our charter and our mission to hold the officers who engage in misconduct accountable. There is the issue of officers facing down guns and other potentially lethal acts toward them that makes this job require extra care. So we want to acknowledge that. But at the same time, as we said, as I said in my remarks, this agency will carry forth this mission. We, with deep appreciation and understanding the really serious risks that officers take. On the other hand, we will fulfill the mission that's been put before us and see if we can increase both accountability and trust. To your first question, as it relates to the LGBTQ community, and then I'll open it up for staff and others to talk. This agency has made real strides to make sure that we engage the community around issues of policing and police misconduct as it relates to the LGBTQIA plus community, and we'll continue to do that. I'll leave it to my colleagues to talk specifically about that, but as one who also comes from that community, it's a particularly sensitivity to me and priority for me. I think a priority for the mayor and the speaker and others. So we'll continue to pay attention to it. But let me turn it over to my colleagues, either at the staff level or on the board, who might want to comment.
Nicole, did you have any comments or any guidance that you can provide related to the question?
Sure, I can address the data part of the question. Just to sort of explain a bit more in context, all of the demographic data that the CCRB has is self-reported data. And our investigators are trained to not ask specifically about sexual orientation, but if the complainant discloses it, they do record that data. And those demographic data options that we have evolved over time. And so the agency began recording sexual orientation with options of either straight, gay or lesbian, bisexual, and other in 2015. Also in 2015, trans man and trans woman were added to the prior gender options of male and female. And in 2017, gender nonconforming was added as a gender option as well. So the data that we have, it's limited, and partly because Staten Island has so few cases, there are really too few cases for us to draw any conclusions from. I can tell you that the last analysis that we did indicated that the highest proportion of complainants that identify as members of the LGBTQIA+ community are in the 76th precinct, and that's 7.1% of the complainants from that precinct. And none of the top 10 are in Staten Island. It sort of ranges from Brooklyn, one in Queens, and a few in Manhattan, with nothing in the Bronx. And so we're still working on that analysis, but the data that we have, while small, it's something that we're really looking into now.
Thank you, Nicole. Any comments or questions from the board members? All right, we want to thank our speaker for the questions and the comments, and I'll ask Jerica if we have other speakers.
We do. Thank you, Chair Davey. So next up, we have Vincent Riggins. Mr. Riggins has asked a question about the authority of the CCRB. He is asking whether or not we investigate all civil servants or just members of the NYPD. So he has several questions. If we could have the board or executive director address that one. And then after that, we can have Mr. Riggins finish the remainder of his questions that were related to PPE and the NYPD generally.
Well, that's an easy one. The first one, it's only members of service of the NYPD, so and no other city employees. So let's hear the other questions.
Mr. Chair, can I just add?
Sure, go ahead. Sure.
So sometimes people don't know exactly who the person is they're interacting with when they are having an issue. So there are, CUNY has its own police officers, H+H has its own police officers. If you are not sure whether you are dealing with a member of the NYPD, there's state police, there's ICE, file a complaint with us, and we will determine who it is. And if it's not a member of service that we're investigating, we will forward that matter to the appropriate agency.
Thank you, John. That's a very good word and a good reminder. Thank you. So the speaker then?
Mr. Riggins? Mr. Riggins, your mic is unmuted. We'll give you a few more seconds if you want to jump in and ask any additional questions beyond the first.
We can go to the next speaker, and then if Mr. Riggins gets in, we can come back.
Okay, will do. If we could move on to Malaika Muhammad. Miss Muhammad, how much are the numbers, asked, how much are these numbers related to Staten Island being, how much are these numbers related to Staten Island being related predominantly to the home of law enforcement? Ms. Mohammed, are there additional questions that you have?
No, I was curious when it was reading the report about the numbers in Staten Island.
Mm-hmm.
And we know that Staten Island, so just wondering, is it accurate? We know that, is there an issue where individuals are not coming forward, because we know that Staten Island predominantly, one, from a racial perspective, it's less of African Americans, Black folks, and then predominantly a lot of police officers do live in Staten Island. So when it comes to these complaints, how accurate is that number?
Someone on the staff want to take that one? So is your question related to the fact that there's a perception that because a number of police officers live on Staten Island, then what's the second part of that?
My question was, I asked her when she was reviewing the stats from Staten Island as far as the complaints, and how, so I was just curious, because are people complaining, are because Staten Island is so largely police force inhabited, are the complaints really being filtered through, or I don't live in Staten Island. I hardly go to Staten Island. We don't, love Staten Island, but it's the outer borough. So are people really coming forward with their complaints, or is it that people are not forward, and there really is a larger issue than what's being documented?
Right. So are people not coming forth because there's so many, at least perceived, police officers living on the island as their home? I'm going to see if any staff or board members want to comment on that. My sense is that's a hard question to answer, but does anyone else have any thoughts about that? So we're going to say we're stumped on that one, and if we get, go ahead, John.
I think I don't know if it is possible for us to answer that question, but Nicole will report on that next month.
Okay, thank you. So, Speaker, thank you for bringing that to our attention.
One thing, this is Nathan from Staten Island.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Anecdotally, from going to outreach, speaking with people in the community on Staten Island, many of them are afraid to file reports against the police because they feel that the harassment is going to get worse. And they're really, really terrified of making reports against the police.
Understood. It just means that we still have a lot of work to do to try to address that issue. So thank you both for bringing that to our attention. And we'll have our own conversations about what's an appropriate CCRB response to that. Jericho.
Thanks, Chair Davey. Our next questions come from Renette Relaford. Ms. Relaford, your mic is unmuted. I will start with your first question. It is, if the how many community outreach events does the board host in each complaint area? If the CCRB is not the host, which events does it attend each year, and how many events does it attend? Ms. Relaford, I'm going to actually ask our Director of Outreach and Intergovernmental Affairs to address your questions. But before I do, just for clarity, are you asking about outreach events in Staten Island generally for your first questions, or are you asking about outreach events in New York City as a whole?
Both. Since this one is being held in Staten Island, my question was related to Staten Island, but also generally across the board. I should introduce myself. My name's Renette Relaford, and I am the administrator for the Citizens Review Board for the city of Syracuse and Syracuse, New York, downstate from you. And so we're oftentimes faced with how some of the questions that statements that Nathan Joseph mentioned, trying to make sure the community is aware that the organization is available for the complaints, and also trying to make sure if they are comfortable coming into our house per se to file a complaint, that we are available in some sort of area that they feel comfortable to file a complaint. So that was the reason for my question.
Thank you for that. Yahira, can you speak a little bit about what we do in Staten Island, the borough itself, and then also generally about outreach across New York City?
Yeah, so our team is composed of 6 team members, and we go and conduct presentations in all 5 boroughs in a variety of different spaces before COVID. So last year we completed about 800 presentations. On Staten Island, to be frank, it is a little bit more difficult to get those types of numbers depending on the types of events that we can actually physically attend because it's smaller than the other boroughs. But from 2019 to date, it's about 60 presentations. So we've gone to schools, after school programs. Jahai Rose has been the lead on Staten Island, has done a great job. So we knew that number was a little low, so we got a little bit more creative. We've partnered with board member Nathan Joseph and started conducting presentations in barbershops and salons. So I'll be happy to touch base with you afterward on outreach efforts in really trying to improve those community civilian oversight dynamics in Syracuse. And we can discuss that further. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Yahira. Jerica, next question or speaker.
One moment. Yes, I'm here. I'm just making sure I'm asking all the questions in order. I don't want to miss anyone. So our next speaker is Selena Gray. Soren, can you unmute Ms. Gray's mic? I believe it's been unmuted.
Yes, can you hear me?
We can. So you had a question regarding over-policing in communities. Can you elaborate on that for us?
Yes, I'm a resident of Staten Island, and we've been out in several communities on weekends, just servicing different communities. And my concern was over-policing, but the police are congregating and not wearing PPE themselves. So if they are to enforce large groups of 10 or more, and to gain the respect of the people which they're trying to police, what can we do and what can be done to ensure that they're not congregating 4 or 5 cars in one large development, none of them wearing PPE? And we do know that several thousand police officers in NYC have contracted COVID, and we had, maybe a little over 20 that have passed away. How can we ensure the safety of our community, health-wise, number one, and also have them respect the police officers because they're doing what they're trying to enforce?
Any board members want to comment? Staff? I think the most we can say here is that we would communicate your concern to the commissioner and others at the NYPD that have responsibility for the protocols and rules around officers and the use of PPE, personal protective equipment, and other protocols. And beyond that, it's sort of beyond the jurisdiction of this agency to handle and manage that. But I do think it's an issue that needs to stay on everybody's radar because there's a sense that things are laxed or that there's a double standard. It just creates more problems for everyone. But I will communicate your concern to the police commissioner and to others at the department. Any other comments on this? All right, thank you. Then thank you for bringing this.
I'm
Sure.
sorry.
Sure, Mr. Dwyer, go ahead.
Takes me a second sometimes to hit all the right buttons. I would just add, aside from the, the obvious of reaching out to the precinct commander, every precinct has a precinct community council president who's a member of the community who usually has a very good working relationship with the precinct commander, and that person lives in the community, and you can usually find them listed on the precinct website, and they can be a great source to begin to create a relationship between folks who don't know the precinct commander and to start to try to improve that relationship. So, aside from reaching out to the community affairs offices, the president of the community council, and again, you can usually find that on the website, is a good resource to start to build that relationship.
Thank you.
Mr. Dwyer. Yeah, and thank you, Speaker, again. We appreciate your bringing this to our attention. Jerica, next speaker.
Thank you. We have Sharon Bargy up next, and there's several questions. So I think I would start by posing the first to our executive director. The first question is, how is the city's budget cuts impacting NYPD? Will there be any cuts there as well? Executive Director Darsh, is there anything that you can speak to with NYPD or perhaps CCRB and how budget cuts have been affecting us?
I have no knowledge of how the department's budget is going to be affected other than what I have seen in the budget, which is that they are having a small for NYPD increase. The budget impact for CCRB is going to be significant. The investigators that we planned on bringing on board next year, the staff that we planned on bringing on board next year, would have greatly helped our ability to investigate cases in a timely manner, and delaying that implementation of that increased headcount is going to impact the agency. Even more dire, the hiring freeze, as people move on to other positions, not being able to replace them is also dire. But again, because of the charter reform, I'm confident that in fiscal year 2022, we will be starting again from back from where we should be this year. The other major impact is it is a real goal of the board wants us to move to phase 2 of the plan to investigate sexual misconduct, to begin investigating sexual assault complaints. One of the key components of our plan was the development of a civilian assistance unit, and I don't know that we're going to be able to do that before FY22. It just seems unlikely to me in the present fiscal environment.
Thank you, John. Were there other questions, Jerica?
There were. And so the next question was related to the social distancing ambassadors. We were asked specifically who is doing the ambassador work, how are they chosen, and if they are paid. While we at CCRB cannot speak to the specifics of the ambassador program, the additional question that was posed is who oversees them in cases of incidents or of aggression. Executive Director Darsh, I don't know if there is anything you can speak to about jurisdiction or where complaints related to the social distancing ambassadors might go.
So it appears that CCRB will not have jurisdiction over the conduct of the social distancing ambassadors because I don't believe they are going to be members of the NYPD. There may be instances where encounters that begin with social distancing ambassadors then involve police that result in complaints that are in our jurisdiction. If you have a question about whether or not the CCRB is the right place to complain about a situation you saw or an experience you had, then please contact the CCRB. You can call 311. You can go to our website. Eileen's going to be mad at me. It's nyc.gov/CCRB complaint. CCRB COMPLIANT. And our hotline is 1-800-341-2272.
Can people want John to lodge a complaint?
Yes.
Great.
Thank you, John. Sharon Varghese, has that addressed all of your questions? Hello, Sharon?
Let's move to the next person, and if she comes back in, we'll try to pick her up.
Great, will do. So next up, we all have Tammy David. Soren, if you could unmute Miss David's mic. Miss David asks, is there a way to look up a specific officer's history with the CCRB, like if they had complaints filed against them? I'll toss this up in the air to see who wants to take it.
The answer is yes, correct?
Correct.
No. Okay. To look up a specific officer's history?
History, sorry.
For the CCRB, to a case?
No.
Sorry, I'll let you answer.
You cannot look up a specific officer's history, CCRB history. If you have a case number, you can check online for the status of your individual case. But under Civil Rights Law, Section 50A, we are prohibited from disclosing information about a member of the NYPD's CCRB history.
I thought the question might have been in terms of the context of a complaint filed. Would the agency be able to access the officer's history?
Oh, we can access that, but we cannot disclose that.
Understood. Who's next, Jerica?
Next, we have Jordan Wook. If we could unmute Mr. Wook's mic.
Jordan, are you
Can you hear
there?
me?
Yes, we can. Please go
Hi,
ahead.
my name is Jordan Woke. I live here in Manhattan. I recall being on Staten Island a couple of years ago, and there were members of the NYPD present, including at least one NCO. Many of today's comments address the police and their actions. Hearing from members of the NYPD directly is very different from hearing from members of the board, most of whom have never been on the force. Consider the response just given to the report of police not using PPE. Yes, the agency can ask their contacts at the NYPD, but no answer will be conveyed back to this group. Better would be a local senior officer on the call who could directly address the issue. Are there any NYPD on the call? Were they invited? And was any response received?
Thank you, Mr. Woke. I think at the top of the hour, at the top of the meeting, Yahira Alvarez indicated that there have been outreach. Yahira, you want to speak to that?
Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. Woke. We did send invitations to all commanding officers on Staten Island, including the Borough Command. we received a response back from Deputy Inspector Abbasi. He's been very communicative in our not the last Staten Island meeting, but the one before that, and had a last minute issue come up in regards to PPE distribution. And Deputy Inspector Melissa Eager, Captain Eager wasn't able to attend as well, but did not receive responses from the remainder.
Thank you, Mr. Wilk, and it's point well made, and we'll continue to reach out to the department to invite members to the meeting. We're going to ask folks to mute their mics if they're not speaking. Jerica, who's next?
One other thing related to that. This is Mr.
Sure, Mr. Joseph.
I just want Mr. Wilk to realize that we always invite the police department to all of our meetings. This is not something unique to Staten Island. They're always invited to the public meetings.
Thank you, Mr. Joseph. Jerica?
Thank you. Up next, we have Crystal Hefney. Ms. Hefney asks, how can we work on making neighborhood control officers permanent in each neighborhood so they can get to know the neighborhood and the neighbors know them and obtain trust within each other to better our communities? So I think Ms. Hefney is referring to the neighborhood coordinating officers. I open this up to the board, or if any of our police commissioner designees.
You hear my name? You heard my name?
Hi, Ms. Hefney?
Yes.
So you had a question related to neighborhood coordinating officers, correct? Yes. So I was opening the question up to our board members to see if anyone could, just share their thoughts on how trust could be built and obtained to better our communities.
Yes, because the main thing is in order to get the neighborhoods, the communities to open up to them and them to open up to the communities, we have to have consistency. And if we don't have consistency, then how do we better align the trust?
Understood. Do either of our commissioner designees want to address that, or we can open it up to staff as well?
I mean, I think at a very basic level, the intent is to have these officers in those commands for an extended period of time. Having said that, some of them get promoted, some of them retire. So, it's not a perfect system. This happens in any organizations, people move on. But certainly the intent is to have them in those commands for a period of time. And the caller probably knows, but if you go online, you can identify the officers who cover your area, and you can reach out to them and set up meetings with them. Meetings today.
I'm a community ambassador, so I know every officer in every neighborhood. I'm also on the board of the Mayor's Action Plan. I'm the leader of MAP, so I'm quite familiar with every NCO in every neighborhood. I go to the 120 committee meetings, everything.
But your question is, how do you make them more permanent so they don't keep moving?
So
Is that the question?
So now I have a question for him. What is the extended amount of time? And you guys saying?
It would vary depending on the person's career. If the person takes that position but then passes a sergeant's exam, the organization is not going to not promote them because they had taken that position. So, I mean, certainly the goal would be to have them in that position for years. But like everything else, people get hurt, people get injured, people, retire, people get promoted. It is one of the great challenges in the police department that people's careers are very fluid. But my suspicion is that you work with them. Do you have thoughts? Because, these are the kind of things that could be passed on.
Well, my thoughts was, I know that Officer Vincent and Officer Moreno, they were looking for promotions, and they're the NCOs of Stapleton. They were looking to get promoted, and before they were looking to get promoted, they had made, the neighborhood, they gained a great relationship with the neighborhood. They haven't been here for about 2 months now, and we haven't met any new NCOs for Stapleton. And that's the community that I work in, so I serve that community on a great board level.
Well, maybe one of the things that we can communicate to the department is that there be more intentional orientation for new NCOs in the community before the ones who are getting promoted or transferring out happens. And again, this is way beyond the jurisdiction of this agency, but we certainly can make recommendations based on what we hear from these community conversations. So yeah, we'll take it. We will definitely communicate that, because it seems as if there could be a better transition when NCOs are leaving and new ones are coming on.
And I would just add, one, I'm pleased you had a good experience with them, but there's also something very positive that you just described, and that is to say somebody who had that role is now going to supervise 8 to 10 other police officers, and will have that experience in which to coach them, teach them, discipline them. And if they hadn't had that experience, then the other people wouldn't have the advantage of them as supervisors. So I totally understand what you're saying about when folks who are really good move on. It's upsetting, but there are positives that also come out of it.
I appreciate it, Frank.
Thank you, Mr. Dwyer. Thank you. And thank you to the speaker for bringing this to our attention. Jerica?
Next, we have Tammy Greer-Brown from Moms of Black Boys United. She's on this call with 20 to 25 members of her organization. We'll give Ms. Greer a few minutes to talk about her organization, but her question specifically is, we want to know how we can assure the safety of the community members who complain about the NYPD on Staten Island. It is so small that everyone knows everyone, and there is no real separation between law enforcement and advocacy for private citizens. I would open that question up to the board or to our executive director, if they can speak to our complaint process and how we address community concerns about that.
So let me say that no one who makes a complaint should ever fear retribution, or if there is any retribution, it should be made known to this agency and any others if you fear it from members of the NYPD. And the only way to stamp anything like that out, if it does happen, is to shine a light on it and make a complaint with this agency, and I guess with any other relevant jurisdictions. But John, do you want to comment on this? Any members want to comment?
You're 100% correct.
Thank you for bringing this to our attention. We've heard this a few times now about Staten Island, and it's worth again a conversation with the police commission and other higher ups that supposedly, at least allegedly, that given the fact that there are a large number of officers on an island that has a relatively small population, that there is this sort of fear of making complaints.
Ms. Greer-Brown, did you have additional questions or any comment before we move on to the next person?
Yeah, I do. I just wanted to thank you for having this. Thank you for Mr. Rose for inviting Taj. I work with Taj of the Youth Council for the Staten Island NAACP, as well as Elisha Scott, our president. I work with a group of moms called Moms of Black Boys United. It was started in Brooklyn by Elisha Magruder. And it was basically just a response to some of the killings that were going on across the nation. And she just got fed up, and what turned into 30 people, just friends. We have 170,000 members on our Facebook page who are looking for answers. Out of those 170,000, we have about 10,000 in New York City alone. And I'm so proud to say there's about 25 of us on this call today. And what we are interested in more than anything is just to protect our Black sons and our Black men from being killed by police officers. And we know, based on 10 days ago, there is still a lot of inappropriate behavior, and that's just honestly. And on Staten Island, we are the epitome of inappropriate behavior with the police department, whereas other excuse me, other boroughs have their elected officials to go to. We do not. Outside of Debbie Rose, I don't think we get the support that we need when it comes to elected officials advocating for us to even go to the CCRB. And I'm not saying this is anything wrong with them. This is just the position that we're in, being the minority here on Staten Island. But it does allow a lot of slide on in terms of appropriate behavior, misbehavior, as well as disregard for the civil rights of our young Black and Brown community, especially our youth. I know you're saying all the politically correct things in terms of, well, we're here for you, blah, 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 this, blah, 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 that, but we don't see it. We do not have that comfort level to be able to understand CCRB and to actually get a response, because I've reported things that I've seen and that I've witnessed or that I've been privy to where I've never gotten a response back. How are we going to deal with that this summer when 75,000 youth will not be working, social distancing will be in place, and recently, just about a week ago, I was driving in a car and police officers are telling me to take off my mask and my gloves during a pandemic. As a mother, as a Black woman, as a Staten Islander, and as a representative of Moms of Black Boys United, this is totally unacceptable. So we need a little bit more than, yes, you can come to us. We need some type of security that we will be protected and others will be protected who will want to make that complaint. Not just come to us, but we really want to know, what are you going to do to keep us safe when we make these complaints? Because I hear them all the time as the youth advisor for the NAACP Council. I hear them from other moms who are on this call right now. We need a little bit more than just the average say-so that you're saying to other boroughs, because we're different. And we don't have the political clout that other Black and Brown people have in other boroughs. So please help us.
So I'm going to ask Jerica Yahira, if as soon as she can arrange it, to have her and her staff, since we can't meet you in person, given social distancing, at least do a whatever we're doing, Zoom or WebEx, but a conference with you to hear more about what you are experiencing, and then for all those things that go beyond this beyond the jurisdiction of this agency, we'll make it our business to communicate it to others in the mayor's office or NYPD speaker's office, and then continue to work with Councilmember Rose, our own Staten Island board member Nathan Joseph, and maybe he could join Yahira and her team in their conversations with you. And the only way it seems to me, not the only way, but one of the best ways is to continue to shed light on this issue that gets raised about whether or not people are going to be appropriately protected if they make complaints against officers of NYPD who live on Staten Island. And the city has an obligation to protect you and to respond, and as much as we can within what we have been commissioned to do by the charter, we'll do that.
And if I add just one thing, this is not just in terms of retaliation that we're afraid of. Some of our CBOs are actually they're muffled because they can get their funding cut off for advocating for us to actually go to the police. They can lose relationships. And with organizations, CBOs and FBOs that do not have the financial backing to continue their work, it makes it all the more troubling and all the more distressful for them to continue to do the work that they need to do during this COVID pandemic. So this is more than just physical retaliation or, retaliation from the law enforcement, but it's also financial retaliation.
Right.
That's an
Well, I
issue.
think, yeah, you just have to keep shedding the light on it. You've got some allies in Councilmember Rose and Mr. Fall and Mr. Joseph on this board, and I think the board as a whole. And let's have the conversation with the community outreach team here with Yahira. Again, Mr. Joseph is nodding his head. He'd be willing to join that conversation, and we'll do what we can.
All right. Well, I want to bring in the founder of DePelsha Magruder into that too. Okay, so we can not just Staten Island, but all my sisters that have moms of Black sons. We all want to see all of our sons get to the next level because we want grandbabies.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much, and thank you for the work that you do. Thank you. Jerica, next.
Thank you. So we are coming to a close and are a little short on time for the remainder of our public session. We saw a hand raise from Council Member Debbie Rose. I don't know if that was a hand raise from earlier or not, but just to open the mic up for her. Council Member Rose.
Thank you. Yes, that was from earlier when I wasn't sure that you knew I was here. But I just want to say again, thank you so much for having the meeting, and that I hear, my constituents, all of their complaints are valid. We hear them frequently, and that we're moving in a direction where we're trying to change the whole paradigm in terms of how policing is done in the communities of the Black and Brown communities on Staten Island. But I have to say, in my constituents' defense, it is really a huge problem. The disparities are overwhelming. And the pandemic has only exacerbated things that have historically and systemically existed here on Staten Island, and I'm sure in other places, but here in Staten Island for decades and even longer. So I thank you for taking their concerns up the chain and to the PC. I also want them to know that we are, in my office, going to do likewise. And I appreciate the comment about the community members being a part of the police community council meetings so that they can voice their opinions right there to the precinct commanders and hopefully get, some sort of instant relief. And so again, just thank you all. Thank you for this evening.
Thank you, Council Member. Jerica, are there more?
Okay, so there are just two quick questions that I'll pose to our executive director. There's a lot of conversation in the Q&A section about officers or supervisors not following with the law with related to social distancing. And folks are asking, can they do a citizen's arrest or can they summons these officers? So I will kick that question over to Executive Director Darsh. And then the other question is related to the board's recommendations to the commissioner. And the question is, has a commissioner not followed one of your disciplinary recommendations? And so I think in general, I would encourage all of tonight's participants to go to CCRB's website, and our outreach team can share those links in the chat. And look at our policy reports that really speak to disciplinary recommendations from the commissioner, as well as it also has detailed reports on our administrative prosecution unit, and just speaks to what the commissioner has done with respect to our recommendations, if there are any verdicts that have been overturned, or really just what the concurrence rate is generally. So you guys, so there, you can definitely go to our website for more specific information on that data. But Executive Director Darsh, before we close, if there's any guidance you can provide on complaints regarding officers with social distancing, or any additional guidance you want to provide on disciplinary recommendations.
So one of the most important things I think the CCRB provides is an outlet for people who are upset or angry or disappointed with the behavior of police towards them, or that they are witnessing, to file a complaint in a non-confrontational way. It strikes me as unwise in the extreme to try and use a citizen's arrest against a police officer for failing to social distance properly, and also to issue them a summons. So please don't do that. Please file a complaint with the CCRB. Please call us at 1-800-341-2272, call 311, or the best way to file a complaint now while our office is actually closed and we're all working from home is at nyc.gov/CCRBCOMPLAINT.
Thank you, John. Jerica, are we at the end of our questions?
We are.
Thank
It's back to you, Chair.
Thank you so much. So we are coming close to the end of our meeting. I'm going to suggest something before I do the last two things on the agenda, because I think they'll go pretty quickly. One is, I know we have an executive session, and so we were going to all log off and log back on. But I'm going to ask our staff is if we can't stay on and you put us back in rehearsal mode so that everyone else is disconnected from us, and just allow us to stay here. Let me see now from Søren if that's a possibility. Søren, can you set it up so that only so that we can be back in rehearsal mode and everyone else will not be connected? Is that possible?
Yes, it will.
Okay, thank you. Give us a few seconds. Let me ask first, is there any old business to come before this board? Any new business? Is there a motion? Mr. Puma.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, yeah, I mean, it's pretty clear we've heard throughout the meeting the concerns about NYPD enforcement of social distancing and disparities that have also been part of the public conversation along race when it comes to that enforcement. There's also another public debate right now as to whether it's even proper for the NYPD, whether that's good public policy or for NYPD to be enforcing this sort of new way of our interacting with each other during the pandemic. But so the point I wanted to ask and raise is, though I understand complaint numbers at the agency are lower as far as new complaints coming in, I'm wondering if we, as a board, could get some sort of report as to new complaints in which social distancing complaints that arise where the underlying concern, I guess, or the motivation for police action was enforcement of social distancing, whether that is something that the agency is capable of keeping track of during this unusual time. And I bring this up also with the particular concerns that were raised around perhaps there being fewer opportunities for youth as the city faces, certain budgetary decisions for the summertime in particular.
Mr. Chair, do you mind if I answer this?
Please go ahead. I assume you would.
So the policy staff is looking hard at this. The problem is that people don't file complaints saying my lack of social distancing was not properly approached by the NYPD. And it is sometimes not clear until later on in investigation what caused an encounter to begin. So we may get a complaint that leads us, that we think is looking at one thing, and then through the course of the investigation, it will lead us to determine that it was the result of enforcing social distancing regulations. So I don't know how quickly we'll be able to report on it to the board because of this is brand new. 2 months ago, no one heard of this situation. So like it is something we are tracking as best we can, but it is extremely difficult.
Thank you, John. Is that, Ms. Kuma, is that?
Yes, I understand that. I mean, perhaps those, what I'm hearing is that, some of that, whether a case is whether a civilian complaint, involves underlying social distancing enforcement it may not be immediately apparent from the initial complaint that we get from the civilian, but upon further investigation, that might come to light, and so therefore numbers may change as a case develops, as the investigation develops. So I understand maybe some discomfort as far as the numbers sort of being static or being fluid. But it sounds like perhaps I would just encourage the staff to and I know that staff has done this very well in the past, examining how you can best sort of report and keep track of these of this particular concern.
We're doing it. It's just not going to be something we can report on quickly, because oftentimes until you interview the member of service, you don't know why they took the actions that led to the complaint.
Right. Understood.
All right. Thank you. Thank you both. Any more new business? Is there a motion to adjourn to executive session?
So moved.
Second. Second. All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. We're adjourned to executive session. We're going to stay where we are just for a few minutes.